All right, well, everybody, I'd like to welcome you to our second year of Women in Energy, and our first year was kind of 2017 and 2018 off, but we're going to hold this event in 2019 and aiming for another one in spring 2020, which is weird to say that year already. And we're very excited. This is an effort that was first kind of brought to us from Columbia, that had gotten, university that had gotten some seed money, encouraged us to kind of undertake some efforts to network women in the energy field, to give undergraduates and graduate students here at Rutgers and in New Jersey exposure to the variety of careers in the energy field, and really help and support them into this area, exposing them to research opportunities, research funding opportunities, and obviously building those support networks that are helpful as we go forward. So I'm really excited to have everybody here this evening and to see so many faces. Logistics of this, I'm going to, have this little introduction. I'll hand it off to Sally, who will introduce the panel, who will then speak, and we'll open it up for questions, and then some further networking time. Restrooms are just across the hall there, if anybody hasn't found those yet. And so with that, I'd like to just make sure that we thank all the people that worked so hard to make this happen this evening. First is Sally Nadler, with Douglas Residential College, who's also helped us with her connections at PSE&G and helping to bring our speaker here this evening. Second is Sadiqa Pasi. Yes, stand up. She is with the Center for Advanced Energy Systems, and she was helpful in helping us organize from the very beginning, bring speakers, and also pitching in for some food for us all. Crystal Bedley is with the Office of Women in Science. And she was so very helpful in helping us track all the details and bringing us together and making us put our heads in the game and on the phone and bringing together the details of this, and did a wonderful job. Thank you. And I'd also like to thank the administrative support we have. We have Pat Munoz from the Sci Women, who helped put together the pamphlets you had, and Preeti Thinaraj and Kevin Keys from the Rutgers Energy Institute, who also offered support this evening and with helping to put materials together. And finally, I'm Rachel Schwam. I'm Associate Director for Education and Outreach with the Rutgers Energy Institute, and we're very happy to be also supporting this effort this evening. And so with that, I'm going to hand this off to Sally.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so good evening. My name's Sally Nadler, and I'm the Assistant Dean for the Douglas Project for Women in STEM here at Rutgers University. And the Douglas Project at Douglas runs living learning communities in engineering, computer science, and general STEM. We run programming, and we know that our students are interested in the energy sector. And that kind of warms my heart, and this event has a special place for me because prior to coming to Rutgers, I worked for over 30 years within the sector. And I had the honor in my last, several years there to open up career opportunities for women in professional services, engineering, IT, as well as in the trades. So for us to be able to do an event like this, and then to have you attend, it just makes it all worthwhile. So we want to give you an overview of some of the different career opportunities available in the sector, both as an undergraduate student, a graduate student, and a professional. And we think we have a good mix of both panelists and moderators to do that for you. So first I'd like to introduce Grace Power. Grace in the middle there is the Chief of Staff for the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. And I've had the honor to meet Grace for the first time this evening. I know a couple of her commissioners, but never had the honor. So now, what's the BPU? Who's the BPU? Well, the BPU is the state agency with authority to oversee the regulated utilities, which in turn provide critical services such as natural gas, electricity, water, telecommunications, and cable television. So they're the regulatory body that regulated companies must work within in order to operate and operate safely on behalf of the citizens of New Jersey. Now, in her role as Chief of Staff, Ms. Power also serves as the chairperson of the 2019 State Energy Master Plan Committee. Grace is a graduate of Rutgers University, the School of Law in Newark, right? The list goes on. She has a master's degree from the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy, as well as an undergraduate degree from Rutgers College. She was also affiliated with the Eagleton Institute of Politics as both a graduate fellow and undergraduate associate. I'm surprised you weren't Douglas also. Next,
Gene Fox gives me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Next,
Just come back for another degree.
next, I'd like to introduce Karen Reif. Karen is the Vice President of Renewables and Energy Solutions at PSE&G. In this role, Karen oversees PSE&G's clean energy strategy. She's responsible for the operations and strategic growth of both PSE&G and PSEG Long Island's solar energy, energy efficiency, demand response, and alternative fuel vehicle programs. Prior to her current role, Karen worked as the Director of Operational Excellence for PSEG Corporate, as well as in numerous leadership roles within the PSEG IT organization. And I hope in this capacity you'll talk about how the energy sector can be an exciting place for computer science, IT majors as well. She has also, she holds a BA in Economics and International Studies from Emory University and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon. And finally, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Sarah Pomeranz. Sarah's an undergraduate student. She's a senior at Rutgers University, studying global business and entrepreneurship and social justice. But what kind of made Sarah stand out as a potential panelist / moderator is she's the co-founder of Sulis, a social venture which develops solar water cleaning technology for communities in India. Sarah led Sulis to the finals of the $1 million Hope Prize Accelerator, spearheading a crowdfunding campaign to pilot the team's technology. She was also selected as Entrepreneur Organization's Top 25 American Student Entrepreneur. Sarah, who is also a Douglas student, believes firmly in business as a vehicle for social change. And in no other sector are you more able to accomplish that than within the energy sector. So I'd love to welcome the panelists, welcome the moderator, and turn it over to them.
All right, thank you so much, Sally, for those really generous introductions, and to both you, Karen and Grace, for being here with us all tonight. So just to start things off, these questions have a a good amount of subcomponents, but feel free to just touch on the ones that you feel are most pertinent to the audience and to your stories. So we'd love to hear about your background and career path. I think we heard a high level of where you are now, but a little bit of your own insights on your company and how you got to the role that you are currently in.
Sure. It's great to be here tonight. As you heard, I'm a triple Rutgers graduate, so every time I come back to campus, it has a special place in my heart. I met my husband here, my friends, take the kids back for games. It feels like coming home every time I come to Rutgers, so it's really great to be here. And especially talking about issues that are near and dear to my heart, which are, promoting women in leadership roles and also energy issues. I can actually trace really where I am today back to two women who also have strong Rutgers roots, and one is Jean Fox, who I think is either currently or just recently was the president of the Alumni Association at Douglas, and Melanie Willoughby, who was the first in the first class of women at Rutgers, and who was the SGA president here. They actually just did a really great feature on her, if you look for it online.
In Rutgers today?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I was an undergraduate at Rutgers. I've always been interested in political science. I thought I wanted to go into politics, which I have. And when I came to Rutgers, I was fortunate enough to be selected for the Eagleton program. And there was this, great internship opportunity. And I got lucky enough to get selected to be an internship with Melanie Willoughby at the Retail Merchants Association. Had honestly no background in energy, wasn't particularly thinking about going in that direction. Governor McGreevey was elected, and Melanie's very close friend happened to be Jean Fox, who was just appointed as the president of the BPU. She was looking for somebody to bring in to her team to be her legislative liaison, essentially the lobbyist for the Board of Public Utilities. And off I went. It was pretty scary at first because I'm literally knew nothing about energy or utilities or any of these things, and spent countless hours reading lots and lots of legislation, learning as much as I could. Was there for 4 years, ended up going to Rutgers Newark Law School at night, which was harrowing at times. From there went into private practice, was in private practice as a lawyer for about 12 or 13 years, and then when Governor Murphy was elected, I did some work on the side in his campaign, but was a big supporter of his. Joe Fiordaliso was selected to be the president of the BPU. He and I had always had a great working relationship, and so he called me in and offered me to the role of chief of staff, and couldn't turn him down. So here I am as the chief of staff at the BPU. One thing that wasn't mentioned about the BPU, we kind of joke that, our day job, which is busy enough, is regulating all the, the utilities, water and electric. But our, sort of really hot topic of the moment is clean energy. We are the Clean Energy Office for the state of New Jersey. We are we're the office that's spearheading offshore wind, electric vehicles, microgrids, energy efficiency, solar, you name it, we are working on it. So it's really a great place to work right now. So that's how I got where I am.
Great.
So I have to echo that it is a really exciting time to be in energy. And how I got to where I am today is a much more, I would say, circulatory road. I went to college, I was a political science major as well, but international studies, I always wanted to do something international. I never did anything international. And I was also interested in business. I graduated and everybody said, well, if you're going to go get an MBA, you have to work. So I took a job working for 2 years where I guess it was international. I was purchasing chemicals for a company in Venezuela and shipping them there, which if you think about where Venezuela now is, it's kind of funny. Went back, got my MBA in finance and strategy, and I wound up with an internship at a company which was a small company that was later bought by EDS, and we were looking at the economics of how to value SO2 credits, which are like long past, right? Now we're talking about carbon. So we did a lot of work there, and I thought energy was really interesting, and Carnegie Mellon had a lot of focus on energy, still does, and wound up then getting a job with another consulting company, a small consulting company. It was like 100 consultants where this is just a side thing. And I would just tell you that when people say things to you as you go through your career, you have to kind of say, like, who's saying this and what are they talking about? So I joined the consulting firm where you flew out every Sunday night and you came home every Friday night. Consulting is not like that anymore. They've definitely changed the work-life balance. And during the orientation, they looked at me, and I was probably one of 5 women out of 100, maybe 10. And they said, women at this firm do not wear pants. So just imagine 25 years ago, someone saying, like, you're a woman in business, and, you know, it's like the IBM-ish, and can't wear pants. And I was kind of like, I remember talking to my mom and being like, I think I'm going to wear pants anyway. Like, you know, she took me to the, like, you know, you get your job, you graduate, you're off there, and you're making money finally. And so she took me for, like, the one shopping experience. And I was like, I'm going to buy some suits. They were still suits, but I was like, you know, they never said anything else, but it was always like, huh. But, you know, you have to be you. So I just want to, like, say, like, whatever you wind up doing, whether you're a woman or man or however, you know, make sure that you don't lose your genuine self. So it's important, you know, it's very interesting, and it's important to learn from everybody and to take in, and everybody can teach you things, and you'll learn different things throughout your career, but make sure that you stay true to yourself. At any rate, I stayed with them for about 15 months. I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't know what city I was in. This was before cell phones. I had to look at the phone, like you pick up an actual phone, which some of you have never seen, and look at the area code to see that I was in Orlando. And at that point, I was like, this probably isn't a good thing for me. PSE&G was my next consulting engagement, in which I was doing something similar to what Grace and I were working on together, where we were doing a dispatch model to look at what the future looks like and what kind of generation would be necessary in the future. So kind of my career came full circle. I joined PSE&G. I had a lot of opportunities there, and I would say take advantage of opportunities. Don't be nervous about what's out there, you know, oh my God, what can happen? Nothing bad's gonna happen. Take chances, embrace change. Change is the one constant, and people are afraid of change. If there's anything you walk away from me, I would say that's the most important thing. So I've been with PSE&G for 24 years. I haven't had the same job for more than 4 years, and I've been in many, many departments. And a lot of the connections I've made throughout my career has been because I worked with someone, or I worked for someone, or I've built a reputation. And I have really tried to help women and minorities get their due chance. And we are making strides in that direction. I don't think we're where we need to be, but I think that we are making strides, and we're making strides as an industry and as a company. So.
Great. I could go on. No, I think that was a really good overall introduction, as well as some sharp wisdom there too. I personally was interning in the consulting sector this summer, and it is different. I will attest it's not that crazy anymore, but still a lot that could be changed. So on the topic, I know you touched on it a little bit, Karen, but overall, what are both of your senses of the role of women in the energy sector today? What is the trajectory? How was it in maybe the earlier years? And how, from your own experiences and also conversations that you've had with coworkers, do you feel like it's evolved? Something that maybe we should all be looking into, and what are the efforts that we should be trying to take to create change in the sector?
Sure. I think it's definitely evolving, but we still have a long ways to go. I've been in, you know, many meetings where I am still the only woman, almost always when it's with outside folks. I have had the pleasure together, you know, with my boss, who is a strong believer in promoting women. We have hired a lot of women, and so I think that we're changing that trajectory, and at every level, because I think that a lot of times, you know, government is really a training ground and sort of a pipeline to, you know, the private sector. So the more women we can kind of bring in at this level, they can go off and you know, lead in the private sector. But you know, it's changed and it's getting better, but like I said, I mean, I still think we have a ways to go, but there are a lot of women who are, you know, on this trajectory and are, you know, leading the way. But one thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if any of you recently read the Michelle Obama interview, and she was talking about sometimes being the only woman in the room. She was very candid about talking about imposter syndrome, and I know so many women at such high levels that still deal with imposter syndrome. And it's something that Michelle Obama candidly said, you know, as her book was coming out, and within, I think, 2 weeks, it's like, you know, the best-selling book of the year. She still deals with that sometimes, where she questions whether she's good enough, whether she's smart enough, whether she belongs at the table. And one of her quotes was something like, you know, when I'm sitting around a room full of men, I have learned over time that they're usually not as smart as you think they are, and that you are, you know, just as smart, if not smarter sometimes. And so if I can impart anything, I would just say, you know, you got to get over that confidence gap. There's actually a great article in The Atlantic, if you look it up, called The Confidence Gap, that has really like stayed with me. And just talking about the differences between men and women. I was talking to my husband one night about this issue of confidence, and he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, you've never had a feeling of being an imposter? No, never have felt that way. I'm like, and I will, you know, share candidly, when I was tapped to take over this position, I definitely in the beginning was like, what am I doing here? Can I do this job? You know, why did, you know, this, what if they find out I don't know everything? Nobody knows everything. But, you know, I think I have definitely grown into the role, and it has helped me have a tremendous amount of confidence. But you'd be surprised how many women, even at very high levels, are still fighting that off. And, you know, we're our own worst enemies sometimes in that regard. So whatever you can do, try to shake that feeling off, because you deserve to be at the table. You're definitely smart enough, and you're definitely good enough. So I would encourage you all to try to push past that.
I have to echo that. A woman once said to me when I was earlier in my career, you just have to think like a man. It sounds ridiculous, but and it's not every man, and it's not every woman, and I don't want to, but in general, women doubt themselves more. They think, you know, the same thing. When I got my job, I was like, why'd they put me in this job? Like, I don't understand. You know, I've been in IT for 15 years. Why are they pulling me out of IT? I've done process. I don't understand, you know, but you can take everything you learned and apply it to your next challenge, and you just have to have the confidence that you can do it. And women generally work harder and are very successful as a result, because we kind of self-doubt, and I don't think that that's a good thing. I think that's a bad thing. So I'm just looking at what the question was.
Yeah, I got a little far afield. Sorry.
That's okay. So I have also found, I am still often one of the only women in a room, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to represent women well and bring more women in, right? So I take it that it's my job to help women succeed. I mentor a ton of people, women, men, in the company, out of the company, and I'm surprised sometimes how more people don't reach out to me. So I find it very interesting, and you know, I have 2 kids in college, and my son will say, well, one of my friends wants to talk to you. I'm like, so let them talk to me, like, what's the big deal? And sometimes I think you're nervous to go on LinkedIn, like, everybody please LinkedIn me, I'm more than happy to help you. But sometimes people are nervous to do that, but it's okay to put yourself out there. The worst they can say is, I can't talk to you today, or next week, or you know what, it's just not good for me. But it's not such a terrible thing. I also find that women don't, it sounds funny, I heard Sheryl Sandberg speak when she came out with the Lean In book, and she's just an amazing speaker. And anyone who hasn't read the book, it's another thing. At least read parts of it, or at least get her TED Talk and listen to it. I made my daughter listen to it. She was in 8th grade. She was like, what are you talking about? But I think that we self-impose obstacles. And I can tell you this happened recently. I offered someone in our department who was doing a great job. She had a baby. Her daughter just turned a year old. And we offered her a promotion to take another opportunity. And she came up with a laundry list of reasons why she couldn't do it, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. So you have to lean in and you have to have the self-confidence in yourself and go for it. Because if you say no too many times, that opportunity in that environment is not going to be there. And you have to lean into the opportunity. And she said a story which really stuck with me that, you know, and women are sometimes, and I agree with her, are sometimes worse to each other. Right? So she said that she's dropping her kids off at school in the morning and all the kids are going in with whatever they're going in with and her kids don't have it and all the moms are like, why don't you have it? When her husband drops off her kids at school, her husband passed away. But when her husband was dropping off the kids at school and they didn't have it, the other moms were like, oh my God, are you so busy at work? Can I help you? So that's not fair, right? We have to help everybody. Right? You never know what everybody else is going through, and you have to lean in and help other people. And I can tell you that I worked part-time for about 10 years of my career when my children are younger, and I went to PSE&G after I had my son, and I said, I don't feel comfortable working full-time. And they looked at me and they said, and so my son is going to be 21 the end of the year, so 21 years ago, I went to them, and they said, we've never had anybody work full-time. So just imagine, 21 years ago, that is not that long ago. But they were really good about it. They were like, but we don't want you to leave, so we'll try it. And you know, now we have a whole flexible work option, part-time program. So you know, I hope that I helped develop that. But I did feel a great deal of responsibility to make it work. So how do you make it work? So don't be afraid to ask for what you need, accommodations, flexibility, whatever it is. I think that the business world is much easier for you in some respects. I think life in other respects is probably not as easy, but I think that there's a lot more flexibility, accommodations, the internet. You know, we used to have to like dial up and get that like beep, beep, beep. Now you're accessible all the time, which has its pluses and minuses, but like ask for what you need and lean into it and take those opportunities because you never know when they're going to come again. And if they don't work out, you'll find another opportunity. It's okay.
Yeah. I would just add, if you don't say yes, someone else will who probably also doesn't have that experience. So just say yes, take the leap, and worst case scenario, you have to ask for help or talk to somebody about a different role. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, that really reminds me of the research, the study done of the fact that, right, for positions that you're considering women, if they have, you know, 8 out of 9 of the qualifications necessary will say, I'm not qualified for the position, and the man in the same role who has 3 will say, I'll give it a shot and we'll see. So definitely, I completely echo the sentiment of just taking gambles, which is a lot of what entrepreneurship also is about. Almost no one's qualified for the job they have, but you all make it work somehow. Okay, so now talking about specifically the work that you do, because I think that outside of the realm of doctors and lawyers, there's a lot of jobs and career paths that undergraduates don't actually fully understand the nuances of, and we don't hear that representation as often, especially in energy and in government and policy as well. So what are some common misconceptions that you hear from other people about the work that you do, and what are those myths that you find yourself dispelling the most often?
You want to go first?
So for me, it's that I'm extremely technical. So I spent 15 years of my career in IT, and I can tell you I can't code anything, and I don't know how to fix a computer. That's a myth, but I understand how to talk to technical people. I understand how to translate technical to lay people and develop requirements. And so that's like my big interesting fact, that I'm not super technical. But what I do have is a broad breadth of different areas, and I've been able to take the skills that I learned in one area and apply them throughout my career. And I would say that it's not as much what you learn, it's how you learn and how you apply that thinking moving forward. And that's why college is so important. It teaches you the critical thinking and the critical analysis. It obviously teaches you important things like calculus or other things as well. But But, you know, and I'm not saying that it's not important to have coders, because that's very important too, and if that's your passion, you know, I say to people, you know, find what you love to do, because you're going to be working for a really long time, and you don't, and find something that you're passionate about and do it, and you know, grow with it and add to it. And especially with this economy, with this flat economy, we don't know what the future brings. So gather those skills and bring them forward.
I would echo that. I am not a technical person. I do not have a math and science background. I am all, you know, political science and public policy. So I think that is one misconception, that it's very highly technical and impossible to learn. I mean, there's, you know, people learn it every day, so you can also learn it. But also that there are so many paths. I mean, the people that we're hiring, whether it's in the economist's office, a legal specialist, policy, you know, we're certainly hiring, we have an IT division, we have HR. I mean, there's so many different ways to get into what we are doing. There's not just one path. And, you know, certainly, like I said, I didn't think I was going down this path, and here I am. So.
Great. And in terms of the industry in general, how do you feel like utility and energy, I know you said it's a very exciting time, and definitely the energy sector is in the news constantly. What do you see as being some of the macro scales in terms of how it's evolving and how technology is really intersecting into that evolution?
So I think, you know, the issues, and Karen knows as well, the issues that we're tackling right now at the state level, at the, you know, at every state and every, the federal level as well, it's all related. Energy is all interconnected. We are right now looking at, you know, installing smart meters, which I know Karen cares a lot about. And the exciting thing about smart meters is that your utility can actually talk to the meter at your house. When you look at things like electric vehicles and trying to flatten out the curve, there are so many exciting things, this is just one example, that can come of advancing technology.
I can add to that.
Yeah.
So, so just to build on that, you know, what we're looking at is think of the phone, right? The phone used to be on the wall. Everybody had one or two. They used to be shared lines, right? That was like when my parents were our age. And used to rent the phone from the company. Nobody owned their own. And in fact, people don't even understand what they want. One of the interesting business cases I did a long time ago was, I don't know if everybody knows, but Lucent, which was then part of AT&T, did focus groups. They came out with a lot of the things we're using today, and had great scientists working on behavioral scientists. And they did focus groups, on call waiting and three-way calling. And the focus groups, like, were just like, they threw shade all over it. They were like, why would anyone want to be interrupted while they are on the phone? And why would we want to ever speak to more than one person at the same time? So, so just think about that, right? We can't imagine our world without that. So people don't, you know, it's such a paradigm shift. People don't always know what they want. So we can think 1 or 2 steps ahead, but we can't think 10 steps ahead. Some people can, and I really admire those people. And how you get there is very interesting. But what we do know is that technology is very important, right? PII is very important. People ask me from the day I took this job, you know, what keeps you up at night? And it's customer information getting out there. I mean, that's one of the things, and we have hardened our customer information tremendously, because as we move forward and we get more data, that data has to be kind of locked up better. That said, it's going to give us the ability to offer consumers different types of products and services that you never thought of. Most people just walk into the room and they turn on their electricity or they turn on their heat and they want it to work. And then everybody thinks that their electric bill is too high and gas bill is too high. There's nobody, like I've talked to large industrial customers, small C&I, you know, small mom and pop stores, and residential customers. And no matter if you have a tiny house or a huge house, it's too high. But what we'll be able to offer is different ways to change behaviors to change your bills. So wouldn't it be great if you could go on an app and you could say, I want to run my dishwasher, right? I just had dinner, I want to run my dishwasher. And you went on the app, and the app said, well, if you run it at 2 in the morning, instead of it costing $2, it's going to cost 25 cents. And then you're empowered to make that decision. So that's the kind of things we're talking about. And if you think about the kind of skills that takes, right? We need people who understand how to put the meters in the house. We need people who understand how to get to 2.2 million meters and swap them out, which is staggering if you think about it, because you think, well, I'll go on the street and I'll replace them all. Well, what happens if someone's on vacation or doesn't want to let you in? And you could get into a lot of interesting logistical. So you need people who understand logistics, who understand project management. You need people who understand systems, and you need people who understand data and engineering. How do I get that? What's the type of meter we should offer? How does that interface with the electrical system? You need electrical engineers who understand that. Then you need marketing people. You need marketing people who understand, how do I package that? How do I get that out there? And obviously you need systems people and cyber people. And I'm sure I did not name even close to everything you need. And we don't even know everything you need. But I mean, I think that we're at a point in the energy industry which is so exciting, at least for the utilities, where we'll be able to offer, instead of just saying, well, you moved into this house, you can be on this rate, and that's it. You'll be able to have so many more options, and so many more options to change and to control your destiny.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say we've sold everyone in the audience now and they want to get involved in the energy sector. In terms of internships, either of you have internships at various phases of your career, or can speak to the opportunities within your respective roles and how people kind of get involved with the companies that you're at.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of interning. I got my start as an intern in Trenton. I interned basically as a summer associate when I was in law school at my firm that I was at for almost 10 years. One of the things that we started last summer for the first time, we restarted the internship program at the Board of Public Utilities, and it was unpaid. We pushed and pushed to see if we could get a paid program, and so this summer we were able to pay our interns $15 an hour. We're really proud of this. I think they worked like 30 hours a week, so it was a nice steady opportunity. But we had I think 13 or 15 interns in, like I said, we had someone in IT, in the secretary's office, in legal, in energy, and that's really been a place that we have been hiring from. Not to get political, but I think the last administration just didn't really value state government, state employees, and so our numbers went down tremendously, and we lost a lot of that sort of bench in the pipeline. So we're really trying to rebuild. We have increased the size of the board by our employees by a little bit over 10%, even with a very high number of retirees, and that's another reason to get involved in this industry. It is, I hate to say it, graying. It is a very graying industry, and there are a lot of, and I know in the utilities it's a problem, for the BPU it's a problem, losing a lot. I have it too. That's why I hesitated. But I mean, we are facing, I think, a third of our agency could retire today. And so that's a huge amount of both brain drain that we're facing, but also just, we don't have a pipeline of people. So we have been using our internship program as entry-level hires. Like I said, in I think almost every single division. We're still trying to get there. It does not happen overnight, but highly recommend doing an internship. Hopefully you can get one that's paid. I think it's really important to pay interns. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, so that you're not just, let's face it, hiring people who can afford to work full-time without getting paid. I mean, I always worked through college. I didn't have, the internships I had were thankfully paid. I could not have taken an unpaid internship, and I think there's a lot of people in those boats. So that's my pitch. We're going to be coming out with our spring semester internship posting soon. If you go to our BPU website, which we need a new website, so bear with us. It might take a little, lurking around the site to find it, but if you follow us on LinkedIn, if you follow our Twitter or Facebook, we're constantly posting about these opportunities. So apply, shoot me a note, connect like Karen, connect with me on LinkedIn. We can, hopefully try to get you in there.
So I'm in the same position. I had multiple internships through college and graduate school, and each of them taught me what I wanted to do or what I didn't want to do. And it's equally important to understand what you're not interested in and versus what you're interested in. And an internship is 8 to 10 weeks. So I was a bank teller. I thought I wanted to get into banking, and I was like, wow, that's not really something I want to do. But it's better to learn it in 8 or 10 weeks than learn it in the future, but it is interesting to understand the processes and the controls, and when you think of that from that perspective, you can always walk away and understand something. At PSE&G, I'm going to give you the numbers from last summer. We had 147 interns all over the company. Granted, we have 13,000 employees. We do also have the grain issue where we have about a third of our population that's either eligible to retire or close to eligible to retire, and we have multiple lines of business. So we have internships in New Jersey and Long Island, in nuclear, electric, T&D, projects in construction, customer technology, customer operations, environmental health and safety, procurement, asset management, and gas operations. And we had, my area had a number of interns last summer as well. I'm a strong proponent of interns. I started a very robust internship program in IT when I was in the IT organization, which became a feeder pool, and we've hired a lot of people from that. I did leave up front Women in Energy internship information. I think they're going to be posted probably every year. It's earlier. I don't really understand why, but definitely by January, maybe in December sometime. But if you log on to this QR code or email the person, Angela Paranoa, she will definitely make sure that we keep in touch with you. And we do a lot. We take you to the nuclear plants, which is very interesting, take you to other generation facilities, take you to a bunch of our T&D facilities, take you into our customer operations center. So it's a really great internship. And I highly recommend that, if you don't work for us, you work for someone in the field that you're interested in to get a taste of it.
I would also just add, if there's a field that you're interested in, reach out, even if it's a cold call. I think a lot of people are willing and really enjoy helping younger folks in their career. Ask them to come and see what a day is like. I say this to a lot of aspiring lawyers who I'm always talking to. I say, you should really go spend some time with an actual lawyer and make sure that you basically want to be pushing paper all day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's a lot different than a lot of people expect. Everyone thinks they're going to go, to the Supreme Court and argue about civil rights, and that is not probably what you're going to be doing. So,
especially in the beginning.
Yeah, shadowing reveals all secrets. That's for sure. I shadowed the CEO of the account that we were consulting for this summer, and it was fascinating. Mostly the breakfast routine, that was the most interesting part, but the meetings were really cool too. This question isn't listed, but I was curious because a lot of research on women in leadership talks about the role of mentorship specifically, and whether either of you have had significant mentors or mentor others in your career now, what have been some of those really impactful lessons that you've learned and tried to pass on, as well as, for students in the audience who are interested in gaining those mentorship relationships, how to best go about it.
Sure. So I haven't had I look at some people and they're like, well, I've had one mentor throughout my career. I think you mentioned that. I haven't had one or two mentors. I've had a series of mentors depending on where I've been in my career. And they've been great. They've been really open. To be quite honest, most of them have been men. And there's a lot of men who want to promote women and who want to promote just people who do a nice job, right? People who get the job done, and because in the end, that's what we want, right? We want to do a good job, and they've been great in all different kind of things. Like I struggled for a long time with balancing my work-life balance, right? Sometimes it would go too much to one side, sometimes it would go too much to another. How do you manage that? How have you managed that? What have you done? Helps a lot. So, and I would say just ask someone to mentor you. A number of people have come up to me and just asked, and it's fine, right? So again, like, I know it's like very nervous. It makes you very nervous to put yourself out there, but it's really okay. Everybody has done that at some point in their career.
I did mention Melanie Willoughby as a mentor, and now really good friend. We get together probably still, every month or so for breakfast. She is currently also in the Murphy administration. She is the executive director, I think, of the New Jersey Business Action Center within the Secretary of State's office. So we get to trade war stories about, being in the administration and the fun that comes with that. But I also feel like I have a lot of sort of like peer mentors, if you will. I have a really great network of mostly women, but men as well, where we reach out to each other when we're having challenges, where we look out for each other, we promote each other, and that has been invaluable. So having a good network of people, it goes a really long way. So.
All right, well, I do have a couple more questions, but I want to make sure that we get to any audience questions. So if anyone in the audience has something that you're already thinking about, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you. If not, we can go back to some of these questions. But yes, please do ask and make the most of all of our time.
I have a question. So, Grace, you mentioned the offshore wind, the possibility of offshore wind coming to New Jersey. And Karen, you and I know that we, have kind of been in that lane before, if you will. So maybe I was wondering if you could, Grace, talk a little bit about that. And then Karen, maybe you could talk a little bit more about energy efficiency. Because they don't seem like they go together. Like, why is the utility company that drives revenue off a customer promoting energy efficiency?
Yes.
So I think those are two important messages from the industry that I think the students would be interested in.
So you're just looking for like, where is offshore wind and where is it going? So offshore wind is here. It is on the East Coast. New Jersey, I think, is positioning itself to be a leader in sort of the epicenter for offshore wind. It's a really exciting time. It was this year. It's hard to keep track. Earlier this year, the board awarded a solicitation for an 1,100 megawatt offshore wind farm off the coast of, I guess it's going to be sort of 15 miles out of Atlantic City. But it all went to Ørsted. It's the single largest project that's going to be built in the East Coast. Probably another 4 years or so it'll be operational. And just the amount of opportunity that is coming from that is huge. We're doing a lot of meeting with foreign governments, and we're learning from them. We're also trying to coordinate with our friends. Actually was just at a conference the last couple of days of sort of mid-Atlantic states that are hopefully going to coordinate on the transmission issues. There are just huge, no pun intended, issues surrounding offshore wind. For example, when you're putting these things into the water, they actually get stood upright at the port and then ferried out to the water. Yeah. So you have to locate your port strategically where they're not passing under bridges, which takes.
You have to have American vessels to move that.
And you need American vessels,
and
right?
There are none today.
Right.
So if anybody wants to start a company, that would be because every state is doing it. Yeah.
But offshore wind, I think under the previous administration, about 8 or 10 years ago, everyone thought it was happening, and then for a variety of reasons, it just kind of stalled. And when Governor Murphy was elected, it was one of the first executive orders he signed within just a few weeks, charging the BPU with getting the solicitation off the ground, with doing a regulation that basically, it's called the an OREC and offshore wind renewable energy credit, which is how the projects are actually funded, and how the money sort of flows between the project developers and the ratepayers. You know, and the governor's called on us to do 2 more solicitations to get us to 3,500 megawatts. And if that means nothing to you, I understand that. I've been there. But so for 1,100 megawatts, that's enough to power about 500,000 homes. So it's pretty significant. New York has made an award. Virginia, Rhode Island, Massachusetts,
It's the whole East Coast.
It's the whole East Coast. So tremendous opportunities there for engineers. I think for professional services, for
everything,
welders, you name it, and then the businesses that'll hopefully spring up around that. So I think the estimates from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority are over 10,000 jobs are going to be associated with this. So it's a big deal. It's really exciting.
Yeah, in fact, I took out my phone. I don't know if Grace saw this because I know she was traveling, but so PSE&G has PSE&G, which is regulated, and we have an unregulated brand subsidiary, and our unregulated subsidiary announced today that we're in negotiation with Ørsted to be one of the investors and to help implement that. In addition, we're the transmission company, right? So think of transmission as the superhighways, right? The highways. And I had the opportunity to sit through a 45-minute discussion on siting these wind farms and how they come onshore. And it is fascinating, and where you can bring it onshore and how they travel and how they travel upright and what the path is. And you think New Jersey has a really long coastline, so it's not a big deal, but then you look at all the shipwrecks, and then you look at all the cables that are already there, and you superimpose this all, and there are areas, but there's not like a tremendous number of areas. So it is very, very interesting and fascinating, and it's such a great opportunity for anybody who's interested, who in engineering and technology, on how you get it, on how that's going to play out. For energy efficiency, so it sounds funny, PSE&G makes their money by selling kilowatt hours, right? Every time you turn on, every time the light is on, we make money. But we think it's our obligation to do the right thing for the environment. So we think it's our obligation, and we're working on wind now, we're working on nuclear, we're working on solar, so we're working on all areas. We have this clean energy future, which includes AMI, storage, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency is really the biggest part, and that is hands down has the biggest payback for customers, which is just like use it smarter. But there's some structural issues with the way that the utilities are compensated today that we have to overcome. And then there's some ways that New Jersey's done it in the past, which we're working with the BPU to figure out the right path forward. But it does sound funny, like why would you want to have people use less of your product? Like Starbucks would never say buy less coffee, it's addictive. I think the Juul people are kind of getting there, but not because they want to. But we feel like it's our obligation to be clean, green, and move forward. So we're hoping to get there shortly, and hopefully you'll all have new types of offers. Which is really about, for a residential customer, how do I incent you to get that energy efficiency, hot water heater, refrigerator, low flow, something, lights, and I can go on and on. We have 330 measures that we've enumerated. 330 things, which are measures, and I could probably talk about it for 4 hours, so I'm not going to do that. But it is very interesting. We're hoping to be able to kick off the program next year, and the great news about that is people can, obviously there's a cost to it, but people can not only defray the cost, but save money on their bills if they participate. So our job will be to have everybody participate. I do want to plug that we have a thermostat program for any of you who have a PSE&G account. We had a thermostat program last year, and we sold it out in about 3 months. We suspect that's going to happen again, but we're rolling it out next week. So on PSE&G.com, if you look for a smart thermostat, we have rebates. We're going to be doing some different marketing. So if you're there one time and you see something different, a couple of weeks later, it's a pilot, so we're trying to do some test marketing. But there is an opportunity to get a smart thermostat that you can check on your phone, and it is proven that people save, I think it's 12% on their electricity by using those smart thermostats and gas.
So I would be remiss if I didn't add to this a little bit. So
yes, and the BPU does offer programs as well.
Well, and I was going to say, it is not just an altruistic measure necessarily, but there is a significant rate of return that the utilities get for implementing these programs, which is very attractive, and they're
a fair rate of return.
It's a fair rate of return. It's pretty solid. But actually, one of the things, there was the 2018 Clean Energy Act was passed last spring, and it was, I call it the BPU full employment plan, because the amount of things it put on our plate that we have been tackling is pretty monumental. One of those is taking a total new look at how energy efficiency is delivered in New Jersey. You have utilities like PSE&G that offer a lot of programs. You have other utilities in the state that offer none. The state does offer some through its clean energy program. For example, if you have an old refrigerator, you can get it picked up and get $50, or there's different things like that. But we have been basically asked, and we were doing this now, and there's we're going to see a lot of Karen the next couple of days. We have 2 full days of stakeholder and technical conferences coming up to look at this very issue. Who should actually be running these programs? Should the state have a role? What should the role of the utilities be? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, as a regulator, we need to balance the ratepayer and with the interest of with the utilities. So we're looking at that, but you guys have a lot of exciting and interesting things before the board right now.
We do. We're keeping them very busy.
Do we have any other questions for our panelists? Amazing.
I know that you said you both work in the state and that collaboration is such a huge part of this industry. So I was just wondering if you ever work with other people from other states like California that have been kind of the vanguard of a lot of environmental innovations in the past decade or so. And also just another prong to this question, if you notice that women in this field are becoming more prevalent across the board, or like it's more prevalent in the West Coast versus East Coast, and what that dynamic would be.
So we do exchange information. All the great thing about utilities, we're regulated monopolies. So we don't compete with the people next door. So when you move in, you have your gas provider and your electric provider. I do want to also say, I know New Jersey Natural Gas is here, and if anybody lives in their service territory, they also have a marketplace. So you can lock on them. I'm just looking at the person who runs it. So at any rate, so we exchange information, and all the utilities in New Jersey work really closely together, but we also work really closely with utilities across the state. And I can tell you, I was with National Grid this morning. I was with a number of states, and some of the, you mentioned, we're not at the forefront of some of these things, and we want to become at the forefront. And so the beauty of not being a first mover is you can learn from what everybody else has done and hopefully leapfrog them and get in the forefront. And since it's such a great industry, since everybody's more than willing to share their information, and that's how we put together a lot of our plans, was through a series of benchmarking exercises. As far as women, I don't find it different based on what part of the country I'm in. I think there are certain types of jobs that I see more women in than others, and I would love to see more of them in the STEM fields. But I do see more women than I did, let's say, 10 years in my career, and I think that that's great.
Yeah, we are certainly collaborating with folks in different states. New York, we've had 2 pretty high-level summits between their policy people and our policy people, talking about offshore wind and figuring out how to collaborate. There's an inherent challenge there because they have their own ISO. They have their own independent, basically grid that's just for New York, whereas New Jersey is part of PJM, which is basically, I think it's 13 states. Mid-Atlantic goes out to, includes Kentucky and Ohio, Illinois, a divergent mix of states. And actually that's where I was the last 2 days with a lot of different folks from different, all 13 commissions, the organization of PJM states, coming together, sharing what they're doing. And it is, at least on the side of renewable energy, with a few outliers, it's definitely the direction that everyone seems to be going in. And one of our commissioners is trying to put together, a more formalized sort of working group with other states in the Mid-Atlantic region to collaborate on offshore wind, because, the transmission issues are sort of the next thing that we really have to tackle. We're actually going to have a technical conference on November 12th that the board is putting together to ask all of these questions about, okay, so how do we actually bring the power ashore? For this first project, it's going to be radial line, so it's just sort of coming in almost like spaghetti strands. But there are companies that want to build basically a big transmission system in the ocean that you could connect the project in, and then let's say it would connect, in New Jersey and then all the way down to, I don't know, Delaware and Maryland. But that has a lot of inherent challenges as well. I feel like everything we do is just, there's so many thorny issues. And it's, again, this chicken or the egg, what comes first, right? The project or the transmission lines. I mean, these are very huge investments. So if we're going to make that investment, we need to make sure for ratepayers it is the right thing to do. Like EVs, there are just, and I think I was talking to a couple of the folks who are here tonight about this, but do we focus on infrastructure? Do we focus on rebates for vehicles, consumer education? I think it's, as we're sort of really trying to advance the ball on electric vehicles in the state, it's a mix. It's all of those things at once. But again, building it smartly, and then the thorny issue of, okay, so who owns the charging stations? Is it the utilities? What is their role? Do we want private industry? And as you can imagine, there's a lot of different viewpoints on this. So I feel like every issue we're dealing with is thorny and really pulls in people from across the agency, which is great too. We're not siloed at all. And even in this administration, not siloed in terms of, we work really closely with DEP or EDA, Department of Community Affairs, because they do the building code. So as we're looking at one of the, if we're going to tackle climate change, their emissions, one of the things we really have to do is look at electrifying buildings, which is, again, very thorny issue that has lots of different, sub-issues baked in, but need to engage with our colleagues across all the agencies.
So it is 6:30, which was our initial time stop, but I want to just thank you both so much for coming and sharing. I know I learned a lot. I think everyone did. So a round of applause for our panelists. And we'll also be here for the next half hour or so. Yeah.
Sounds good. Hi. Thank you so much, Karen and Grace, for being here, taking the time to be at Rutgers, and imparting on us insights and giving us a glimpse into your professional journey as you navigate through the maze that is the energy industry. Thank you, Sarah, for doing a wonderful job of moderating the panel. Another round of applause for our We have a small gift for you that our team put together. Although I wish we could give you a better season with Rutgers football team, but no, it's just...
No one ever can. No.
Thank you.
There's a couple years.
Yeah, you would know.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow, that was very
So I'd like to wrap up this wonderful and productive night with 3 takeaways. The first, the advice and guidance that the speaker gave to you, the young, ambitious women in the audience, is vital in empowering you to go and make really meaningful contributions in the energy industry. 2, the role models like our speakers are really setting the stage and pushing the boundaries of what is possible for our next generation of women to go and change
and give the transformational direction that our energy industry needs as we're embracing climate change. The third thing that I'd like to wrap up with is acknowledging our male allies in the room. From our Department of Energy Program Manager, John Schmiegel, who made the way up from Washington, D.C., to our friends at Lehigh University, Dr. Alp, and our local male ally here, Dunbar Burney, who's always been on the sidelines cheering us on. So I leave you with this, that the energy industry is very broad, and the opportunities here are plentiful. So as the speakers told you today, embrace the opportunity. Don't be afraid of being movers and shakers in the energy industry and delivering a changed world. We have a couple of things that we have as homework for you, which is to fill out the event evaluation. I think this is this is one of the first events that I've been part of, and I've really taken a lot from the discussions, the insights, and quite honestly, a candid conversation and dialogue that we've had about what it takes for women to really move forward and make impactful contribution for the energy industry. And I'm passionate about being in the energy industry. So please do fill out what you guys thought you got out of this event. And then we talked about mentorship a little bit. I've been working with the Department of Energy on putting together a mentorship program for women in the energy industry, specifically around energy efficiency. So if you're interested in being a mentor, I would really encourage you guys, those of you who are in the young professionals who want to mentor students and graduate students here, please sign up so that we can patch you guys up with a student in our program, and we'll continue having this kind of dialogue going forward. So thank you. We're going to wrap it up with another round of networking, so please come and talk to our speakers. They are going to be available for you tonight, but also meet other people who you don't know in the room, because it's a small world. You never know who you're going to be working with 2-3 years from now. So please take the opportunity to use this networking event. And you guys have a great night. Hope you got a lot out of it. Thank you.